You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold. Today we welcome in Michael Ansell, founder and managing member of NextGen Counsel, assisting clients in New York and New Jersey. How are you today, Michael?
Good, thanks. Thanks for having me, Benny. I really appreciate it, and excited to be your first one back after the new baby.
Thank you. Yeah, it's I was bursting at the seams, wanting to get back doing the podcast.
Yeah.
I just have such a good time doing it. So we're happy to have you on. You have a really interesting concept going, and I can't wait to get into that in a little while. So we actually recently featured you on Lawyer Stories. It's lawyer_stories on Instagram and also on Facebook. And you start by telling us you're from a family of lawyers. So what was that like growing up in a family of lawyers, even before you you knew you wanted to go to law school?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of yelling. You always have to be the loudest one in the room to be heard, for sure. So, and not only is it a family full of attorneys, but most of them practiced in the same firm together.
Oh,
so
really? Okay.
It was an interesting dynamic, to mix the family and business.
Right. Wow. So everybody's yelling. You got to you want to make sure you get your 2 cents in there, and people are probably arguing all the time. I think I read somewhere that you wanted a specific birthday cake or something somewhere like that.
Yeah. So
you're 5, maybe, is that?
Yeah. I always joke, my dad actually used to tell me all the time to be a rock star or work on Wall Street, because it was much better than being a lawyer.
Right.
And, I don't have any musical abilities, and I wasn't greedy enough for Wall Street. So, you
weren't greedy enough for Wall Street, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
But no, for my 5th birthday, my mom asked what I wanted, and I said a lawyer man cake. I was into Superman too, and I looked at them as the same thing.
I wonder what that actually looked like. There's got to be a picture out there.
I don't know. There isn't a picture because my brother pushed my face into it.
Okay.
But it was a guy in a suit holding a briefcase.
That's amazing. Well, did he have a cape too? Probably.
No, he didn't.
Well, I mean, getting your face stuffed in the cake by your brother, I guess that builds character, right? So, by the way, I just want to say, I love your website. I was perusing around there today. It's very warm and inviting. And I could tell, you have your mission statement on there, and it sort of looks like that's the type of services they would get based on your website. And Stephanie, who's your co-founder and managing director, she's been terrific to work with too. So I want to give a shout out to her. She's really on the ball and very nice and responsive. So we appreciate
my wife. And so I have to call out, thank you for the website nod, because she built it all.
Yeah, it's amazing.
She literally just taught herself on YouTube how to do it.
Yeah, you can learn anything there.
Yeah.
So tell us, one question I like to ask, and I know you're from a family of lawyers, but one question we like to ask on the show is when was the moment that you knew you wanted to be a lawyer?
That is a tough question, because I don't really know life without wanting to be a lawyer. But I think it has to come down to my dad. Every night at the dinner table used to talk about cases he had. And when my mom's parents were over, they're much more blue collar types. And he liked to feel out arguments on them as if they were a jury, right? And
interesting. I think that's really interesting, actually.
So at the dining room table, you'd sort of have these strategy sessions, but all of it, for him, he did mostly personal injury.
Okay.
And, I just saw that how committed he was to helping people whose, for all intents and purposes, lives had been ruined by somebody else. And I was like, oh yeah, I want to do that.
Yeah. Where is his office based out of?
They're based in central New Jersey, by the shore, by Asbury Park. They started.
Okay. So I'm from I'm from Maine actually, but I'm from New England. I live in Massachusetts now. You went to Tufts undergrad, which is a very good school.
Yeah.
And then GW, was it GW as a law student?
GW for law.
So
Yeah.
like, let's kind of separate those. So what was your experience like at Tufts? I mean, that's like a really good school. What did you study? Was there anything in particular you took to put you on the law school path?
So yeah, I mean, I did the, traditional kind of poli-sci, which I guess, a lot of lawyers start with, but I also did a double major in what was called peace and justice studies.
Okay.
Which is a kind of, granola major, but really what it was nonprofit management. So I always sort of I was always a bit of an idealist and but at the same time, understanding the realities of the politics and environment. So, it was a good combination of the two, and, had a lot of interesting experience interning in nonprofits, during my time there. And so I think that kind of created, where I am today.
That's awesome. So you went right to law school from undergrad?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think that was a good choice?
For me, it was, yes.
Okay.
I enjoyed college too much. I was not a serious student in college. And so the only thing I got serious about really was making sure I didn't fuck up the LSATs, and and because I knew that that's what I needed to do next. I don't know what would have happened if I didn't sort of commit to that, in junior year and make sure that I did what I needed to do. So for me, it was the right decision. But, I think once you get to law school, you see some of the people who thrive the most are people who had experience, in the real world before law school.
I think, and it's just so hard because I think a lot of kids are just eager to go to law school, and like hindsight's 2020, and you can't see that, learning time management. That's like my big thing. Like, I wish I would have learned better time management. So I could know how to treat law school as like you can actually do like a 9 to 5, 9 to 6, sort of thing. Maybe study a little at night, but so I totally get that. What was like did you have like a big challenge in law school, would you say? Something that was like difficult that you didn't like?
I mean, course-wise, not so much. I was lucky to, GW sort of let you focus a little bit pretty early on. And so I pretty early on focused on labor and employment type work and civil rights courses. So, I was able to, other than the core materials that we all had to do, really kind of do what I wanted to do. But like you said, I think the toughest thing for me, especially coming from a college environment, not having that 9 to 5, grind experience, was making sure that I kept a schedule, right?
And because Thursday night rolls around, and it's Thursday, and then it's the weekend, and it's kind of
and a lot of people in law school treat it as more like business school, where it's a party and networking, but I committed to kind of trying to treat it like a job.
Gotcha.
But that was the hardest part for me, was finding a schedule and a rhythm coming out of college.
So with that said, Michael, what advice could you give a first-year law student?
My advice would to not get caught up in the sort of trappings of what law school and big law tells you need to do. Right. I think, and I've heard you talk about this on other podcasts, that law school doesn't teach you really how to be a lawyer, right? It doesn't teach you the business of law. It doesn't teach you the practical shit you need to know to actually do the job. And so I think, clinics and internships and practical experience is something that students really should focus on, not, law review, moot court kind of stuff, because it looks good. It's going to get you a higher ranking on the interview list for big law, but it means shit in terms of your ability to actually practice.
Right. Totally. I think that's great advice. So like when you left law school, you went into your family firm, correct? So tell us like how long you were there and like what kind of law you were practicing there.
Sure. So I went into it because I wanted trial experience. And so I know my dad was a great trial attorney. I knew, where else could I go where I'd get to work so closely with someone who I could basically ask to give me trials, right? So
Okay.
that was the big motivating factor for me. When I got there initially, I was doing mostly personal injury work.
Okay.
But it's an old school. I mean, there's 40 or so attorneys, but it's still, they all like to refer to themselves as country lawyers, right? So it's a very much general practice firm. So
Wow.
although I focused on, personal injury, I got to do everything.
Okay.
And while I was there too, I really one of the things they were missing was labor and employment practice. And that was something I was interested in more from like a civil rights kind of perspective. I always saw that as like, one of the frontiers of civil rights issues in modern day life. And
Okay.
so that was something I started to focus on and build out a practice
So-
within the firm.
So was the practice of law, so first of all, how long did you stay there?
So I was there for 8 years.
Okay. And was the practice of law, would you say, like what you thought it was going to be like?
No, nothing like I thought it was going to be like.
Okay.
I mean, I think one of the hardest things when you get into a private firm is the pressure to generate business, right? That comes pretty fast if you want to advance. And I always struggled with that. I like the sort of intellectual exercise of law and thinking about cases and focusing on that. I did not really like the networking part of it or generating business or selling myself.
Gotcha.
I'm that guy who I was approached someone with a card and said, I really hope you never have to use this,
Yeah.
Because anytime you're talking to me, it's probably a bad day.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's actually, I think that's a pretty good tactic, actually. That's a pretty good.
Yeah, I guess.
So like what made you leave the family firm? Why did you do that?
It was, I was hitting that 10-year point where, and if anyone, who's listening has that sort of stage in their career where they're stalling, right? It's, you have to kind of make, if you want a lateral move, you have to kind of make it before 10 years.
Yep.
Otherwise you kind of need a book of business. And so that was the motivating factor for me, together with, I didn't want to be a one-trick pony. I wanted to see how other firms operated and have exposure to that. And the firm I ended up going to had a lot more complex commercial litigation, which was, something I had switched to doing after about 4 years at the family firm and wanted to develop that a little more.
Interesting. So how long were you at that new firm for?
So that new firm only lasted 2 years. I was only actually in the office for about 9 months of it before the pandemic hit.
Oh,
right?
okay. So that's very recent, actually.
Yeah. So I started there at the September of 2019, and I was in the office till about March, and then spent most of my time actually virtual. So,
Wow. Okay. And how was the firm? How did they treat you with that? Like, were they kind of like, oh, well, he's not working like 80 hours a week in the office. He's at home. We don't know what he's doing, but we're paying him, sort of thing.
Yeah, it's funny. It started like that, as I'm sure most firms did, but I think we were killing it, right? And luckily they had the technology in place where it was a pretty easy adjustment.
Right.
And as a lot of firms saw for the past year and a half, I don't think profits were just as they were before. We were all just as busy.
Yeah.
But then they still want everyone back in the office when it's over, right?
Yeah, I know. I like that tradition, right? But so like moving on to NextGen, right? So I find it's interesting because you said, you don't like, you like the theory, you don't necessarily love like going out and like getting the clients, you hit the 10-year point, but here we are, right? Like when did you start NextGen?
Yeah. Well, so the idea behind NextGen, and I guess I'll sort of explain a little bit. So we try and we've developed like a subscription plan service, which is sort of like a GC on call for small businesses.
Okay.
Right? It gets you a certain amount of time plus review of a contract or document. And that I think is worth not only for what you get each month, but for developing a relationship over time with a business. And that's what I really wanted to do. So between that and flat fee services is sort of what the model is. And I actually started developing that pretty early on at the family firm, when I saw like WeWork's exploding, right? I was like, how can young associates target new business?
Did you say
Like,
you
what?
weren't exploding there? Is that what you said?
No, I said when WeWork was exploding.
We work.
You know,
Okay. Yep.
yeah, like when I saw that model really starting to take
Right.
off.
Yep.
And in my own, journey, having trouble generating business because, you're a 20-something-year-old associate who's coming to you, right? And so
Right.
I thought it could be an interesting sort of product, right, for a firm to offer, or for the younger associates to offer, to bring in smaller businesses, start developing those relationships, and then like over time, 1 out of 100 becomes a major client down the road, right?
As the business grows with
as the business grows,
Yeah.
a lot of them don't make it. A few do. Hopefully they stick with you because you were in with them early.
That's interesting. Yeah.
And so I saw it as like a product to help associates
So
generate.
do you help them? I know you're super smart, like based on where you went to school, like like the theory and all this, like, do you actually, so what I'm guessing is like you get a young business in there, right? And by the way, like your fees for the subscription, like the first plan, it's not astronomical. It's like super reasonable for a small business. So I encourage everybody to check that out. But do you actually like give them suggestions about the business? Like if it's something that you know a little bit about, like it's not only like, I'm going to read your contract, I'm going to, that sort of thing, but maybe you have a chat with them about like where you see the business can go.
Yeah, look, I view it and hope that, our clients view it as a real kind of partnership, right? There's things, whether it's I don't want it to just be a one-off, please look at this contract. I want it to be an ongoing discussion. What issues are you having? What have you thought of? What's your insurance look like, right?
Okay.
All those kinds of ongoing things. And then generally with marketing, now having the experience of having to open and run my own small business, I hope to use that experience too to help them, because a lot of the clients are either just starting out or, are more ground level, where maybe I can provide some more of that business support.
Okay. Yeah, that's I think it's really interesting what you're doing there with NextGen. So like when did you start it? Like I think COVID had sort of like an impact on starting it, or?
Yeah. So like I said, I developed the fee structure to work within existing firms I was at, but how it is to break into that traditional mold, they weren't really having it.
Did you present it to like the partners and stuff? Okay.
I did. Yeah. And it was, we're making 400, 500 an hour. Why the hell would I offer that? Right.
Yeah.
And so, so it wasn't really taking off there. And then, with COVID, my priorities shifted, right? I wanted to get back to local small businesses. I wanted to be more helpful than, I shouldn't say this, but helping, fight for rich assholes, right? I was kind of tired of that.
That's okay.
And so, I wanted to help people that I liked, right? And people that I wanted to be in business with, and so, and then my wife too, she had a career in fashion for almost 20 years. And, the pandemic, she got furloughed and she was like a star employee. And she's like, well, if I'm not safe, who the fuck is? And, you kind of do everything your whole life thinking you're making the safe, right choice. And then through no fault of your own, it's gone, right?
Yeah.
And so we both kind of hit that point. We're like, all right, well, let's just do it then. And we're fairly competent people. She had much more of a business background and I had the law background. And we're like, well, if we can't do this, who the fuck can?
Right. So that's what happened at the firm you were at. You were there for like a couple of years and you were just sort of like, okay, all right.
And so, so we decided to sort of jump into it together with her, and I felt a little more comfortable doing it, knowing that she would sort of be on the back end of the business strategy and the marketing. And so taking that off my plate a little, more.
So I'm sorry, tell me how long you've been in business so far with NextGen Counsel.
So we officially started in August, but
Yeah.
we started planning probably about a year before that, right?
Okay.
And I think that's, that's some advice for anyone who's thinking about doing this is, it's not something you just kind of jump into, right? I mean, we gamed it out a year in advance. We sold a house, we moved for the purpose of putting money aside to carry us, make sure we were carried for a year, 2 years.
Wow.
So we changed our whole lives to be able to take the risk.
Wow. Well, congratulations. It's
Thank you.
It's amazing. So like, it's like I said, it's very affordable, like looking at, and you want to build a relationship with the person. And I think you could really get that off of the website, looking at the website. It's not your, stodgy old law firm website at all. So like, what if a case like takes a long time that you get, and they're paying you like X amount of dollars a month, so that's my first question about it.
So like a litigation type case, you're saying? Yeah, I mean, litigation is still a problem area to reduce to a flat fee, right? I mean, because so much of it's outside of your control. And so for the most part, I've tried to really just bake that into a much lower hourly rate than people would usually get for an attorney with my level of experience, right? So $250 an hour as compared to what they'd pay at a firm, I would have been billing out $400 an hour. Right. And so, the litigation is hard to reduce down to a flat fee. But I do look at each case individually, and if it's something that I think can be done for a flat fee, I'll put together a proposal for it.
Will you still do something that might go to litigation, but not for a flat fee? You'll still take it?
Yeah, I mean, yes, I'll still take, hourly work.
Okay.
But if it's pre-litigation, I'll try and come up with a flat fee number. So
got you. And so like, what is like, I've heard of people using like prepaid legal type of things, where they pay and then when they need their lawyer, they, like
what lawyer?
Right. You don't know what lawyer they're going to throw you.
Exactly.
And what it's going to be. And it's like, who knows what goes on with that, but it's like, I just want to draw the distinction, obviously. Like, I don't think they're comparable, but.
Yeah, no. And I appreciate that, because I think it is, it's funny, as we were sort of doing market research on this, my wife was researching LegalZoom and their top, what their top pages are, right? And their top 1 or 2 pages is how to cancel the subscription.
Oh,
right. Like that. So I think, yes, they try and sell it as kind of like an insurance policy, but really what you're getting is some attorney who offered, to give an hour of their time to LegalZoom in the hopes that they can turn you into a paying client, right? Yeah. And you're gonna, with each issue that arises, you're gonna get assigned out to a different attorney. So, so we kind of looked at that model and we're like, well, how can we use that, but actually give you an attorney that you know and build a relationship with? And so, so that was certainly something we looked to, but I think the big difference is that you're working with me, right? And you're paying a subscription, but you're working with me.
Right, so they know what they're getting. So what advice would you have for an entrepreneur, like anybody wanting to open their own business, or like small law firm?
Yeah, so I think, again, don't overlook legal, right? It doesn't have to be that expensive. I know, we were doing, some marketing with like a blogger, and her take on it was like, you feel like such an adult when you have to call an attorney, right?
Right.
And I think that generally people are scared of attorneys. They're scared to call attorneys. They're intimidated by, what they might get when they call a firm. And so, I think a big part of it is overcoming that fear, right? Finding someone that relates to you, because having a legal partner in it from the start can reduce a lot of headaches and costs down the road. Okay,
so don't overlook legal. It's important when you're starting a business.
Right, it's the foundation. You can have a great business, but you don't have an LLC and you're not registered for taxes where you're selling products, right? It could all fall apart, even if you have a great business model.
Call Michael Ansell. That's what. That's awesome. So So like, what's your long-term vision for now? I mean, you're really just getting started with NextGen
Yeah.
Counsel. You're getting the word out. Hopefully we're going to help you get the word out a little bit. What's your long-term vision or goal?
So I think, it's funny because of one of the podcasts I was watching yours with Justice HQ, right? And so I really loved the model he was developing and sort of that membership structure for for attorneys, solo attorneys, to have a workspace and a collaborative environment. And I see NextGen Counsel kind of being similar to that, except as more of a traditional firm, in terms of you can have solos who might be practicing in California, right, who want to join as an of counsel with NextGen,
Right.
and then we can sort of spread there and provide the same services there. And so then, I see it as not only being a resource for the client, but also for other solos or small firms out there who want another revenue stream.
Right.
Right, which is one of the reasons why I use the trade name, not not my name.
Yeah, sure. And by the way, I just want to tell you that if you ever see somebody or Stephanie ever sees somebody on Lawyer Stories that you want to connect with, let me know. I'd be more than happy to do the warm introduction. That's sort of what I do here. I love to connect people. So just let me know if you want to meet any of those people that you've seen anywhere on there. As long as I know them, but I really actually, I take pride.
Can you hook me up with Benjamin Crump?
Yeah, why not? I mean, look, I take pride in knowing or talking, at least DMing people we feature, just everybody. It's not a copycat type of thing. So anyway, that offer's open to you. Okay, that's great. And so I want to congrats you on being congrats to you, excuse me, on being named the new leader of the bar.
Yeah.
Saw that in 2021 by the New Jersey Law Journal. So what does that
I don't really know what it means.
Okay, because I was going to say, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. All right. Okay, fair enough.
I guess I was recognized by enough peers or some nominating attorney, and they put me in it. So I'll take it, but I'm not 100% sure what it means.
Okay, so what advice? I know we did advice for law students, for entrepreneurs. What advice would you give to new attorneys?
I think my advice to new attorneys would be to do it, right? I mean, for the most part, and this is something I actually I learned from clerking, was that it doesn't take much to be a pretty good attorney when you see a lot of the others who are out there doing it, right? Very early on, I was watching people in court, and I'm like, oh yeah, I could easily do that, right? This isn't that bad. And I think a lot of what all attorneys are doing is kind of faking it till you make it. And so, I think there's probably a lot of fear out there for people to jump ship, especially if they're in a comfortable law firm type environment. But, there's plenty of work to be had. And what I found most surprising really is the amount of available clients in a small community, right? Just in the town I live in, right? There's a huge business community.
Wow. Okay.
You don't really think about, right? And it's not a big city or anything like that, but there's plenty of brick and mortar retail places. There's plenty of people, who live there and are starting virtual businesses. So, even if you're kind of micro, there's still plenty of work out there.
Yeah.
And plenty of clients to be had.
And so speaking of the work, what would you say NextGen Counsel's sweet spot is in terms of what you like to do the most?
So what I'd like to do the most is labor and employment work.
Okay.
And I think that's helping guide employers on compliance. Just because I know it's fraught with liability, right? I mean, employers can get whacked for the most, sort of minuscule oversight for wage and hour violation, right? So I really, that's kind of what I enjoy doing most. What I'm doing a lot of is a lot of contract work.
Okay.
Helping people create templates that they can use.
Okay.
And most of them come to me having, either gotten a free template or purchased a template online. And, they're not very good.
Okay, well, that's what they have you for, I guess, right?
Yeah. So that, so I'm finding myself doing a lot of that work, but
Okay,
the labor and employment is what I enjoy the most.
gotcha. So like what areas geographically are you covering right now?
So right now, all New York, New Jersey. I have a place in upstate New York too. So I have a little bit of up in Hudson.
Okay.
So, kind of have a community there, then, my network sort of within New Jersey. And we're getting a good, a good mix, mostly New Jersey clients at the moment, but quite a few from Brooklyn or Manhattan, as well. And I have to say, I feel like there's some firms like NextGen that are geared towards like the tech startup industry, right? I guess because there's a lot of money to be made there. And so this is really, yes, I can do that kind of work, but like my focus is really on the mom and pop type, old school kind of businesses, right? The retail store, the coffee shop, someone who just started a marketing company or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. And like, do you love it? Like, are you loving what you're doing right now or what?
I really do. Yeah. And I think what I'm surprised most about is that I really like the people I'm working with, right? Like it's sort of, you have your community, right? When you work in like a firm, that's your community of people.
Yeah.
And so now I have to go out there and like build my own community of people, right? And not other attorneys, just generally, just people to interact with during the day. And I'm kind of really surprised at how many like just really nice, good intentioned, kind-hearted people we're meeting and working with, and how much more I enjoy working with them than traditional bigger businesses.
What about the family though? Are they like trying to get you back to the firm or what?
No, I mean, my family is luckily very understanding. Nobody wants to prevent anyone from doing what they want to do.
That's good.
Like I said, my dad always discouraged me. I don't think it was because he didn't want me to be a lawyer. I think it's because he didn't want me to feel like I had to be a lawyer.
Okay.
And so all of the families kind of like that. They wouldn't ever want me to feel like I had to be or should be at the firm. So, everyone's been very supportive.
So like how many family members are in the firm that are lawyers?
Well, so my dad just recently passed, but he was there thank you. Right until the very end, like literally the week he died, he was still, going into the office. And so what is it? There were four as of the time of his death. So 3 now, but there were as many as 6.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So I just wanted to read your mission statement that I really liked from your website. So like our mission is to provide small businesses with legal counsel through a revolutionary pricing model and personal and proactive approach to create a modern take on the attorney-client relationship. I think that's awesome. There's a lot to break down there. We don't have to break it down right now, but is there anything you wanted to say about that or add to that? Revolutionary pricing. How about personal and proactive approach? Tell us about like proactive approach.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that goes back to what I was saying before about how important I think it is for a small business to start with the right legal foundation to avoid issues, right? And I think you have so many people that only call an attorney once a problem arises,
right?
Without realizing that, a lot of those problems can be prevented, and it's a lot cheaper and it's a lot less headache. And so, that's why we want to partner with people early and often, right? So not just a one-time kind of use. We want to develop that relationship so that, we can help to prevent the issues before they arise.
Very good. So, Michael, did we leave anything out today? I want to know if there's anything else you wanted to say on the podcast of Lawyer Stories community.
No, listen, I think there's a lot of people out there after this pandemic who are starting their own businesses and sort of rejecting the old world. I hope that keeps up, and I encourage lawyers to do the same and change the way we work, because it's stodgy, it's inefficient, the way most firms and the profession generally operates. I think it needs to be shaken up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think you'll find a lot of those type of attorneys on Lawyer Stories, and
yeah,
like I said, you definitely should connect with some of them. There's a lot of unique attorneys looking to sort of change the profession that way, out of the traditional way that the practice of law has been done.
Yeah,
so that's great.
I appreciate you getting my story and other
Yeah.
stories out there. It's great to see.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. It was great to talk to you, and hopefully, we'll work together again. We'll help get you out there and meet some people. And I wish you the best of luck with NextGen Counsel. I think it's a tremendous idea.
Thank you.
All right, so you got it. So stay right there, and wherever you are in the world today, everybody, enjoy yourselves. Cheers.